Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but it's not. All the more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Blog Talk Radio.
I actually forgot to do that one time in a pre-tape and recorded the entire mode in just chat mode, so I didn't get anything. So we're actually recording now. So this is much better.
Okay.
And here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0, the only podcast that focuses on mental health while mixing in movies, music, books, sports, and pop culture. Here are your hosts, Rebecca and Joe Lombardo.
Hey everybody, welcome to Voices for Change 2.0. We are glad to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to give us a listen. Thanks for tuning in. We do absolutely appreciate it.
Today is an exciting day for us here at Voices for Change 2.0. We're thrilled to be talking shop with an extremely respected and influential mental health advocate and the creator of No Stigmas, which is widely known, Jacob Moore. Welcome. We are so glad to have you.
Here, Rebecca and Joe, I really appreciate you having me on today.
Hey, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. We really, really appreciate it, Jake. Thank you so much.
So if we're ready to dive right in, let's start back in the early days of Jacob Moore. Were you diagnosed with any type of mental illness?
Well, yes. And I mean, if we're going to go back to the beginning, you know, for me, my mental health journey really started when I was 6 years old, when my birth father died by suicide. And that, you know, as you can imagine, kind of gave me a rough start right from the beginning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, you know, I inherited a lot of his traits genetically, which I think left me predisposed to some mental health issues. But then, you know, the circumstances surrounding that, I think are really what brought everything to the surface. So, you know, from an early age, anxiety and paranoia were really just a part of daily life for me.
Wow. Yeah, we're so sorry to hear about
your dad.
We're
very sorry to hear that you had to experience that at such a young age. That's just it's heartbreaking.
Just traumatic. So you've been kind of battling your entire life then, really?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I always refer to it as I feel like a human experiment because, you know, as a kid, I always felt different from everyone else, and you know, with the paranoia and the anxiety, you know, and coupled with doctor's visits, trying to figure out what was wrong and not doing well in school, you know, being the kid who was misbehaving, so on and so forth. You know, I just always felt like I was different from everyone else. And, you know, I created this fantasy world where I actually thought that I was some type of science experiment. You know, it was the only way that I could explain away, you know, what I was going through. The fact that, you know, at this young age, I you know, thought that I had cancer and I had symptoms of heart attack and, you know, all these things that, of course, didn't seem normal. And now looking back, I know, you know, were anxiety, panic attacks. But back then, that was how I explained it, and so I felt like I was being watched, and I felt like, I was kind of cooked up in a lab somewhere.
I can
I can actually understand that, especially when you're a child and you're going through all these different things, you're searching for an explanation. And, sometimes you reach for stuff that just doesn't seem plausible if you stop and think about it. But at the time and in the moment, you're like, oh my God, you're going through a panic attack and you think, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack.
Right.
I completely get that,
Yeah, I understand that fully. I get panic attacks myself, and I can remember not as early on as you, of course, but back in high school, even in a little bit in elementary school and middle school, a little bit, experiencing just this overwhelming fear type feeling that just weighed you down, and it just made your heart race and you sweat and everything. So
yep.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's
and the thing is now, of course, doing the work that I do and talking with people, sharing my story, I have come to discover, like you, that in fact a lot of people have gone through this. A lot of people have had these experiences, that I wasn't alone in that. But at the time, I didn't know, and I felt completely isolated, and I felt like a freak. And, that's how I grew up, for the majority of my childhood. And, being, constantly inside of my own head and perseverating on what was going on in my body, didn't leave much room for me academically to pay attention in school, to get some of that basic grammar, arithmetic, some of those things that were the building blocks for an education. And and so that was a struggle for me all throughout my school years. And I think a big contributing factor, in addition to those genetics, to why in high school I developed clinical depression. And, got to the point where I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of bed, I didn't eat, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I stopped going to school, I stopped interacting with friends, and, they almost didn't let me graduate high school because of, how severe my depression was and how much school I was missing as a result of that.
Right. Was that when you were actually officially diagnosed, was when you were in high school?
Yeah, that was the first time. Before that it was always, he's the bad kid, or he's the ADD kid, or,
Right.
I was always the one out in the hallway and horsing around and trying to get
attention.
The
principal, and yeah.
Exactly. Oh yeah. I was, me and Mr. Babcock, we were, we knew each other well.
Yeah.
And looking back, of course, I see all of that behavior, and it's so easy to see that, I was trying to get attention. All of those were bids for attention, because I didn't know what was going on, and I was scared, and I was trying to get someone to pay attention, and I didn't know that I was doing that, but, it's easy to see that in retrospect, of course.
Right. And you're still receiving treatment today, right? I mean, are you managing things better, or how's that?
So there are two more phases to the human experimentation. At first,
okay.
I thought it was other people experimenting on me, and then, when that diagnosis came, my senior year of high school, that came from a doctor, and that created, this environment where now I had a diagnosis in a file, and there was a name for it, and so with these doctor visits, of course, came prescriptions. And, over the years, the next 5 years or so, I got scripts for everything from, adult ADD, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, seasonal affective disorder, sleep. I mean, during that time I had 23 different combinations of pharmaceuticals that they gave me. And,
wow.
And it was a situation where, and this was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, at that point, a lot of these medicines were new, these brain medicines. And so they would write a script and see, give it to me and say, okay, let's see how this works. And we'll talk again in a couple weeks. And, that didn't work. Let's try this. Or let's add Effexor to that Depakote. Let's do this. And so truly, I had become a human experiment because they were just doing trial and error to figure out what would work to maintain my brain chemistry.
Right. Yeah, you kind of felt like a lab rat at that point.
Yeah, they're just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. I've
That's it.
I've kind of been in there too.
Beck's been there, yeah. Yep.
And and I had some great doctors and some great therapists that I saw during that time. And that's not to say that it was all bad and that the system's completely broken, but that was largely the approach. Was let's write a prescription and see if this fixes it. And at no point did someone say, hey, let's take a look at some of your behaviors. Let's take a look at some of your habits about, with your lifestyle and, see if we can figure out some other additional sustainable approaches to your mental health in addition to pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Was your family supportive through your trials with all of this? I mean, how much support did you get going through everything that you were going through at the time?
My mom was amazing. She was the one who recognized some of those similarities between me and my dad and saw some of the behaviors that I was exhibiting, that he had. And so, she was the first one to take me to the doctor and, was there with me the whole way. So I'm incredibly fortunate to have that support. And, she saved my life. I would not be here today if it weren't for my mom. Because I had just completely lost the will to live, I call it suicide by apathy. I stopped taking care of myself and was just letting myself waste away. So she was really, my saving grace. But outside of her and my, immediate kind of healthcare team, I didn't talk about this. I didn't share any of these experiences, so there wasn't really space for support from anyone else. That came, much later in that third human experimentation phase.
Right. Wow. That's I'm so sorry that you went through all that, and it was such. I mean, that's an ordeal, especially going back to 6 years old and, growing up that way, just trying to figure out what the hell's going on, God bless you for coming out on the other side of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It just shows you what intestinal fortitude that you have, to be able to come out on the other side of that, especially starting back so young. I know that there were traumatic events in my childhood, and there's still some things that bother me to this day that I'll still have nightmares about to this day. So I can understand to a degree. I won't say that I know exactly what you've been through because obviously I don't, but I can understand it to a degree, and I have a great deal of respect for the work that you do now after having been where you were.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And I do I definitely pride myself in my resilience, but I also think that I owe a lot to my support systems, and I think there was definitely the fact that I was born as a white and by this point middle class. We grew up very poor in a trailer park, but by the time I was in high school, my mom and my stepfather had kind of made their way, and so at that point, middle class white kid with insurance, I had a lot of resources that a lot of people don't. So that intestinal fortitude, that took me to a certain point, but I also had a lot of help. And, the unfortunate reality is that not everyone out there in the world has those type of support systems, which is why it's so important to do this work. It's so important to make sure that we're connecting people, through our lived experiences to those resources that exist out there, because they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to take our first break here. We will be right back. You'll be listening to Levi Christ, So Much Better.
Ooh, roll the top down. Let's take an afternoon drive. I've been working too hard. I want to leave it all behind me. Pushing and pulling, yeah, the world keeps spinning around and around. But I go with the flow. Nobody gonna get me down. Think I tell you the secret by the way that love's gonna be. It's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. Getting hold of me, and it's so much better, so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better, so much better now. And it feels good to let it go. Yeah. I want you to stop and take a look around. Let your body unwind. You see, you got everything you want. You just gotta open up your eyes and sing it. Holding on to something when there's nothing that you can do to change it. Just let it go with the flow. Get about your business doing you. Oh, say I tell you a little secret how to make it on the street. Oh, it's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. It's getting hold of me, and it's so much better, so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better, so much better now. It feels good to let it go, and it's so much better, so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better, so much better now. It feels good to let it go. Yeah, feels good to let it go. Yeah, may I tell you a little secret how to make it on easy street. It's a super sexy, conscious, cosmological ecstasy. Get it hold of me, and it's so much better, so much better now. Baby love, don't you know that it's so much better, so much better now. It feels good to let it go, and it's so much better, so much so let it go. Oh, 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 oh.
Hey, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. I'm Joe. This is Rebecca sitting next to me, and on the horn is Mr. Jacob Moore of No Stigmas. How's it going, Jake?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yay. Sorry, that was my cheesy radio announcer voice. I've
yeah,
gotten that out.
He loves to do that.
I love to do that.
That's his thing.
I went to radio school 20 some odd years ago and never did anything with it, so this is the closest I've gotten. So when I get the chance. But
put it to
all
good
right,
use.
Well,
that's right.
Exactly. All right. So, do you happen to recall the first time that you realized that you were becoming an advocate for mental health? Was there a certain realization or
an epiphany?
An epiphany of sorts?
Yeah, it's actually it's a very, very vivid moment for me because, as I mentioned, I didn't do well in school, and I tried to go to college, but I would enroll in classes and drop out, and enroll and drop out, and eventually I gave it up and I said, all right, I'm going to Chicago and I'm going to be an actor. So
there you go.
And in typical actor fashion, I spent the majority of my time waiting tables and tending bar. So that was my survival job in Chicago. And as it turns out, I had a knack for hospitality and managing bars. And so, I ended up doing that for quite a while. And one of my regulars came to me one day and said, "Hey, Jake, I just started this business, and I think you would be fantastic at sales. Come and work with me." And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm in Chicago to be an actor. Like, I'm not going to come and do sales in a corporate office environment." And he goes, "Well, this is how much I want to pay you, and this is how much you can make if you work really hard." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So I went and took this sales job, and I was the first guy in the company, and we grew really fast and made lots and lots of money, and and over the next 4 years of working with him, I ended up managing a team and selling millions of dollars, and becoming successful, and buying a condo in downtown Chicago, and I had the car and the girlfriends and the trips and all that stuff, and I was still absolutely miserable because I wasn't doing what I had set out to do with my life, and B, my mental health was not very well managed, because at that point I was still just popping scripts to maintain, and it wasn't fully taking care of all the symptoms. And so at various points throughout my time there, it would affect my performance. And toward the end of my time there, it really started to affect it, to the point where he came in and he said to me, "Look, what's going on here? You're checking out. Are you being recruited by another company, or are you thinking of starting up your own shop? What's happening here?" And it was the first time in my life that I decided to tell someone outside of my immediate family that I live with depression and anxiety. And it was really scary. And, because this guy, he'd become, my mentor and my friend, and, and we built this empire together. and I remember so distinctly, being in my office and talking to him and telling him, no, I really, I like this. I want to be here, and I'm committed to this. But here's what's going on with me, and
Right.
I'll never forget. He looked me straight in the eye, and he said, "Well, Jake, I think you must just have a weak constitution, and you need to get over it."
Oh,
Right?
Oh,
And
man.
a weak constitution, meaning that my very makeup was flawed somehow. You mentioned intestinal fortitude earlier, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
here I am, someone that I looked up to, a mentor, telling me that I had everything but, So it really just devastated me. And
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
and I realized two things that day. One, that there were people in the world who actually thought that about mental health. They actually believe that people who have mental health issues have weak constitutions, that they're flawed somehow.
Yeah.
And two, I realized that he was a complete asshole, and I needed to get out of that job as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description of the guy.
Definitely.
Wow.
So, that really set me on my path to, getting out of that world and reconnecting with, my purpose. But also, it inspired me to really dispel those beliefs and to, start sharing my story to help people understand that no, that's not the case at all.
Right.
And that was really. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
I was just going to say, and that's really what started this third phase of the human experimentation, which is when I started to be in charge of the experiments, when I took control of my own mental health and said, hey, there's got to be a better way. And so I did a lot of research, and I connected with a mentor, and I started taking vitamin supplements and working out and regulating my sleep and just figuring out what worked for me, because those cookie cutter pills weren't doing it.
Right.
And and so for the first time in my life, I really felt like I was in charge. I had taken ownership of my own mental health, and and that's when I really felt the confidence to start to share my story, and really that was the beginning of what No Stigmas is today.
That's actually what I was going to ask is, did this contribute to you creating No Stigmas? How did you create No Stigmas? How did that come about? That's
about when was
yeah.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how long after you left this ridiculous job?
Well, keeping in mind that leaving that job also meant leaving an awful lot of security,
Right.
and to be, 28 years old and making, plus six figures and having a condo and having a lot, riding on that, it was not a decision that I took lightly. So I understood that if I was going to do anything, it had to be, something significant. And if I was going to, take a 100% pay cut to start something, it had to be meaningful to me. So, my passion for it, grew, and it also, part of it was, this was the first time in my life that I really started to explore my relationship with my father, who died by suicide. And because I grew up completely thinking he was garbage and thinking that he was weak and that he had abandoned us. And, I had all of these unresolved feelings about it. And through this process of having a mentor, say something like that to me, I realized that a lot of those feelings that I was harboring against my dad were because of stigmas. And, and living it myself and experiencing it myself, I realized, well, no, he's just someone who had a mental illness and he didn't get treatment. And that led to his suicide. It had nothing to do with his character at all.
Right.
So, to answer your question more directly, in 2007, I decided to share my story publicly for the first time, and I did that through social media and through my blog, and it just caught on, and it really resonated with people, and around that, it just started to grow this community. And out of that, this idea for No Stigmas came to me, and so, I created a website with a forum where people could share their stories, and that's how it started, really organically, very grassroots, as a sort of social media movement back when it was pretty fresh still, and so over the next few years, it just existed and kind of grew like that. And then finally in 2011, through some conversations, realized, okay, we have something here that's beyond just, story sharing. So, let's form an organization. And so, we became a 501c3 nonprofit in 2011 and, have since moved, in addition to our story sharing initiatives, to, educational and support programming.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so inspiring to hear. Just you seeing, from what your dad went through and from what you yourself went through with the stigma and the discrimination. Out of that, you created this community that and this organization that is helping people all over the place, and
it's huge. I mean, No
that's
Stigmas
awesome.
is everywhere, and I literally see it everywhere, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, I've got my sticker, and I've got the photo in the screensaver, so it comes up, and we're just
it's inspiring.
It is inspiring, and we're just so glad that you came to the realization that this is something that could go further and could become what it has today. And I think that you'll go even further with it.
Yeah,
most definitely. Because you've even recently launched a new program available through the site. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. It's our new Ally program, and essentially it's mental health support for peers by peers. So
cool.
Yeah, it exists as an online membership portal. You can sign up for free at nostigmas.org. And when you join, all you have to do is put in your email address, and you get access to our free online course. And the Ally training takes you through modules focused on peer support, self-care, and advocacy. And what I think is the really cool thing about it is, as you go through this journey of your training, you go through at your own pace, wherever you are in, your mental health. That's where you get to plug in to the training. So if, you want to hang out at self-care lands for, a year or two, great. Like, that's where you live. If you are, in a space where you want to explore peer support and how to support other people and how to, be in that community, then you get to, in your own time. And if you want to take it to the next level and become an advocate and, do some type of social media or real world action, lead a meetup group, then you can do that. But along the way, you unlock different membership perks and aspects. So, for instance, once you complete some of the self-care modules, you get a year subscription to BetterHelp. When you complete some of the self-care modules, you get a year subscription to Headspace, the mindfulness meditation app, and 2 weeks. 2 weeks of free online counseling through BetterHelp.com. You get access to our online peer group. You get access to in-person meetups. And it's all kind of depending on, what you put into the community, you get back out.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's so comprehensive,
It is. It's definitely, I remember, about 2 months ago or maybe a little bit longer, going on your site and investigating because I wanted to take part in the advocacy program. And I remember you mentioning to me that it was going to be revamped shortly. So I kind of held back to wait and see what was coming next, and that really sounds absolutely amazing. And you said you've had like something like 450 signups for that, haven't you?
Yeah, just since May. So, in
Wow.
a few short months, we've had a ton of response. And, a couple hundred people who have gone through the entire training and, are now full-fledged, community leaders. And I think what's really exciting about it is this creates sort of this community within a community. We have No Stigmas in our virtual community as the hub, which is there, but now we're empowering people to go into their own communities and to share and spread the No Stigmas model where they live. So they get to take, these core values, these tools that they've learned, and they get to customize it for their community. So if they belong to a running group, then that's how it looks. If it's a book club, bowling league, if it's, survivors, they get to customize it based on that. So this is not traditional church basement, hi, my name is. This is getting together for activity-based interactions, which allow people to, to just feel normal and to feel like, hey, we can get together. We don't have to talk about all this stuff, but I'm with people who get it. And organically, those conversations are going to come up. Organically, that peer support is going to happen, but it's not forced. It's not contrived.
Right. That's what I like about it. Yeah, you're talking about it just like you would the weather. It comes up. And
it's not so forced, and you don't feel so, regimented, like you have to follow a certain path and a certain skill set and whatnot. It's definitely more open to.
You're not being beat over the head with it.
Right, and you're more open to communicate under those circumstances. You're going to feel, like you said, more comfortable. So that sounds amazing.
Well, we like to just.
Go ahead.
Please.
Finish your sentence.
I was just going to say we like to describe it as a choose your own adventure approach to mental health. So you get to decide how you want to interact, whether that's giving support, receiving support. It's on your terms, because ultimately, everyone's mental health is different, and so is their journey.
Exactly. Yeah.
And incidentally, I used to love reading those Choose Your Own Adventure
Yeah,
books.
I did
Those are my
too.
favorite. Those are awesome.
Me too. That's what I was doing in school when I should have been doing grammar and arithmetic. I was reading those.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're going to take a little break, and it's a good chance to go and get a drink or something. We're going to be listening to Casey Lansdale's "Living in the Moment."
Easy to get off track, easy to lose your way. In a world that makes you believe there's no time to waste, that you gotta have it all, better have it all, better not slow down. Looking ahead got me looking in circles. Life with a plan at first seems hopeful. Worry that I won't make it like I want if time keeps flying by. But you gotta have faith, don't let it slip away. Don't let this world drive you crazy. 'Cause I got a feeling if we keep believing, all that matters is right now. Forget about forever. Your path's already chosen. Start living in the moment. This old world keeps spinning, spinning every day. Just when you think it stops, there's an earthquake rushing you along, telling you to move along. You gotta give yourself a break. You gotta have faith, don't let it slip away. Don't let this world drive you crazy. 'Cause I got a feeling if we keep believing, all that matters is right now. Forget about forever. Your path's already chosen. Start living in the moment. Start living in the moment. Get caught up in tomorrow. You'll miss out on today. 'Cause you gotta have faith, don't let it slip away. Don't let this world drive you crazy. 'Cause I got a feeling if we keep believing, all that matters is right now. Forget about forever. Your path's already chosen. Start living in the moment. Start living in the moment.
Hey, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. We are so glad
Start
to
that
have
up.
you with
1
us.
sec. Wait 5 seconds. Start over, Beck. I didn't have you quite in yet. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Hey, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. We are so glad to have you with us today.
Yes. Thank you for being with us.
And thank you once again to our guest, Jacob Moore. We are having a great time chatting with you.
It is truly an honor, sir. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, you're also beginning a speaking tour next month. Would you tell our listeners how they might find out where you're speaking so they can attend?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have a few different avenues for speaking. No stigmas, of course. And then I'm really fortunate to be part of a collective of lived expertise professionals like myself, and it's called Conquer. And you may be familiar with the founder, Kevin Hines. So Kevin, who is just an absolute rock star in the suicide prevention space, author of a book called Cracked Not Broken, and has a new film coming out called Suicide: The Ripple Effect.
Wow.
Has been so generous with including me on his team. So I get to do some speaking events through that group, and then also with my work with No Stigmas. So in general, you can find out dates for where I will be speaking, and if they're open to the public, at jacobmoore.com.
Oh, cool.
Okay, perfect. That makes it very simple.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were going to be, if you're going to have it on No Stigmas or where you would have it posted. So the fact that you've got your own separate site and you can promote, your speaking engagements on that, that's very cool. And the fact that you're working with Kevin is even cooler. That
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to be very busy.
Even busier than we initially thought.
I try to keep busy. It's a really fantastic time because this conversation that's been happening about mental health and suicide prevention for the last several years now. We're finally in a place where it's going beyond talk. When you have celebrities and public figures who are on board with it, that's fortunately and unfortunately when that real change can happen. And so now we're starting to see increased funding, and we're starting to get some programming in the corporate space, and places where 10 years ago you would have never dreamt of having a mental health program. So being busy is good because that means that we're connecting with more people, and the message is getting out there to a wider audience than ever before. And podcasts like this are part of that trend. There was never a space for something like this in the past, and the fact that you have this and all of this listening audience, you're creating this network and in essence a support system, is just amazing.
Well, thank you very much. We take pride in being a part of the community and doing our best to get out there to really pull down the stigmas that are out there, and put a voice to what people go through, and show them that it's okay to talk about it. They're not alone. We're all in this together, and I think we really, how do I want to say it?
We came on board to do this for a particular reason.
Yeah.
And it was to show my perspective as the person with bipolar disorder, and to show Joe's perspective as the person who is caring for the person with bipolar disorder. And that's what we think is so important about it, is that we've had married couples come to us, and boyfriend, girlfriends, and everything. How do you deal with it? I can't deal with my husband. I think we're going to have to get a divorce. How are you guys so happily married? It'll be 16 years for us this August.
Yep.
Wow! Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's work. It really is work. You have to, if you really love the person, you work at it, and you set aside, ego and pride sometimes go out the door in the face of the greater good, which is the relationship, and it's a matter of, I know I can't fix her, but I also want her to know that I'm there for her in whatever capacity she needs me to be.
And I'm not, and those of us with the disorders are not asking anyone to fix us. We're just asking you to be by our sides while we try to figure out how to fix ourselves.
Yeah.
So, that's why we started this journey, after all of my experiences. I mean, I was diagnosed at 19. So, I just think it's so important. That's why we keep doing this show, because I think it's so important to bring people like you even more into the forefront. Or maybe there's listeners out there who haven't heard of you yet and are going to be absolutely blown away by your story and are jumping on your website right now to sign up.
Yep.
And we just that's our hope. We just really want to connect.
Raising the awareness is the goal. And I think with the mental health community that we have out there at large now, you see there's all this talk of healthcare in the news and everything that Congress is doing and all this stuff to try and get a proper healthcare bill. And I'm not bringing up politics.
No, we don't do that.
We don't talk politics on this show by any stretch, because if I won't get into why. We'll just say that we don't.
better not to. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say that I think that the mental health community has been a force in the decrying of what the Senate was trying to get put through. And I think that we're a voice that's strong now in our own care, and trying
We're definitely getting somewhere.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten
I agree.
We haven't gotten there yet. We have a long way to go, but I definitely feel like, and especially with us, with no stigmas and the many other different associations that are out there, I definitely think that we are making some noise and people are finally starting to hear us and
pay attention.
Yeah, it's
wonderful. I agree with that. And the great thing about the conversation of healthcare is that it's bringing it to the forefront of people's minds. And
right.
I'm a strong believer that, and this may be a controversial statement, but I'm a strong believer in the fact that I don't expect anybody to take care of me. I don't expect the government to provide health care for me. What I do expect is access to what I need and the resources that are out there. But ultimately, it's up to me to take care of my own mental health. Mm-hmm. No one can do it for me. And like you were saying, when it comes to a partner, you're not asking them to fix you,
Right.
You're not asking them to pick you up and carry you through your mental health journey. You're asking them to walk beside you. And ultimately, it's up to us. So whether or not the government provides health care to us, whether or not we have those resources, we still have mental health issues. We still have to figure out what to do about it, right?
Right.
So we can't just sit around and say, woe is me, the system is broken, and so I can't be fixed. No, that doesn't work. You have to take some sort of positive action. And that is where that intestinal fortitude comes in. Your mental health issues are that your imbalances are those, your brain chemistry is what it is. But your decision to do something about it is completely and exclusively up to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you know what works for you.
Exactly.
You're the only one who can know.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one who knows yourself inside and out. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. That doesn't mean that, you're on a deserted island and there's no one to help you. No, that's what peer support is for. That's what professionals are for. That's, why we build these support systems for ourselves. But ultimately, it's up to you. It's your mental health, and it's up to you to do something about it.
Right. And that's the thing is, we say all the time, and this is something that Beck realized a while ago is, and you kind of said it too without saying it the way I'm about to say it, but you have to do the work. It's not just, I'm going to take this magic pill, I'm going to feel better. You have to put the work in too, and advocate on your own behalf.
And a lot of people have come out and asked me, well, what do you mean? What is the work? Well, I can't tell you what the work is for you.
Yeah.
It could be completely different from what the work is for me.
Yeah, the work could be, finding a therapist and seeing a therapist on a regular basis. It could be finding a psychiatrist, or it could be going to group therapy, or it could be doing DBT, or any number of things. You have to figure out what works for you and then do it. But you have to get up off your ass and do it.
And that's it, and, for me personally, it took me about a decade to discover my own wellness system. And, and through that process, I realized, for me personally, that pharmaceuticals were not the answer. And I think that through certain periods of my life, they were good tools for me, but ultimately, the negative effects outweighed the positive for me. And so now I maintain my mental health exclusively through diet, exercise, and through, my therapy. And, but that's my solution. That's what works for me. And I'm by no means suggesting that that's going to work for everyone. And, before you do anything changing your health or your medication, talk to your doctor. I worked with my doctors, with my psychiatrists and psychologists to, get to this point. I take therapeutic doses of vitamins, and I have an extremely strict regimen for maintaining my mental health. And again, that's what works for me. But, that's why with our ally training, part of the process is discovering, going on that path to self-discovery to figure out what works for you. So, we don't give you a solution, we don't give you a blueprint, but we act as a conduit to care, to say, hey, there are lots of tools you can put in your toolbox. Here are some of them. Now go explore and see what works for you and build your own wellness plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing, and I'm so glad we got to talk about that. And there's just this one last thing that I really, really wanted to get on. We're just about out of time, but I really wanted to get your mental health march that's taking place in September. I really wanted you to be able to talk a little bit about that, because I know it's going to be really important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So, very similar to the Women's March or the Climate March, we are having a mental health march that's happening in San Francisco on the Golden Gate Bridge on World Suicide Prevention Day. So that's September 10th in San Francisco. Yeah, and it's really exciting because my partner and I have created this outside of an organization. So this is not an initiative of No Stigmas, because we really wanted it to be as nonpartisan as possible, so that any organization, any person, political affiliation can participate and, and be part of this collective proclamation that mental health is important, that we need to be heard, and that suicide is preventable. And so that's the idea. So we're crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, and the idea is collectively to cross the Golden Gate Bridge a total of 44,195 times. And that's one for every American who dies by suicide each year. And so we're doing that through sheer numbers and the number of crossings, and also by empowering satellite marches in other locations. So people are walking crossing bridges in their own locations. And so that's the goal, is to have over 44,000 bridge crossings collectively, and really make a statement about mental health and why it matters.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow.
And if you can get some of that information to me, so I can tweet it out to my followers as well.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Make sure everybody gets on board with this, because I think that's an amazing initiative, and I got goosebumps just listening to you talk about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I wish
you can
all
find
the best
out.
with that.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find out more information about it and sign up to participate or to volunteer if you want to be on part of the planning committee. If you are an organization that wants to partner, you can find out more at mentalhealthmarch.com.
Okay,
Cool.
Perfect. And for your social media, just so we've got that out there, you would just give away the @NoStigmas, correct?
Yeah, @NoStigmas on any of the social media platforms you will find us. For me personally, Jacob Moore on Instagram, Twitter, search me on Facebook and you'll find me. I love connecting with people and sharing my story and collaborating, so feel free to reach out.
Well, thank
Awesome.
you so much for today. This has been an amazing conversation. We've learned a lot about you. We've learned a lot about
No Stigmas.
and just everything that you're doing, and you're doing some great work, and we're grateful for your time today, and we're grateful for everything that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And likewise, I appreciate everything you two are doing, and keep up the good work. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll
right
try.
back at you. If you want to stay on the line for just a moment, this is Blake MacGyver, Start to Believe.
Staring down that long and winding road, I felt like I could never start again. Flipping through the pages of my broken life, just remembering when, before I was yours, I just stumbled through my feeble lies. But now you bring me all I could ask for. You give me all that I need, and baby, you've gathered the pieces. Maybe I'll start to believe. Ooh, shana, ooh, shana, ooh, shana, ooh, shana, ooh, shana, ooh, shana, ooh, shana. Looking up that mountain top, I said, how do we begin to climb? Wishing I could speed right through to all the joy, just manipulate time. But now I am yours, so I'll stop wandering through those feeble lies. 'Cause now you bring me all I could ask for. You give me all that I need, and baby, you've gathered the pieces. Maybe I'll start to believe. My doubts close in, I know that you'll be there. I won't despair, my dream coming true. Who knew? Baby, it's you. And though I falter, I lose control. Your soul pulls me through. Baby, it's you. You know just what to do. You bring me all I could ask for. You give me all that I need. And baby, you gather the pieces. Maybe I'll start to believe. I guess I'll guess I'll start. I guess I'll start to believe. I guess I'll start. I guess I'll start. I guess I'll start. I guess I'll start to believe. I guess I'll start to believe.
Join us next week as Rebecca and Joe continue to battle the stigma of mental illness. Follow us on Twitter at Voices for Change RJ and on Facebook at Voices for Change 2.0.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Yes, while Geico could help you rack up more moolah faster than you can say metamorphosis, they've also been the fastest growing auto insurer for more than 10 years. That's more like it. Furthermore, Geico has fast and friendly claim service. That might seem like an oxymoron, but it's not. All the more reason to say no other auto insurer has more than Geico. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.